I thought they were going to be words.
No, that's it.
That's it?
That's it.
That's
so
good. That's good, right?
So that's not bad, right? I thought this was like, so how do I do it? The Techstars, you guys are recruiting talent?
Yeah, it's a song and dance thing.
Yeah, all over the country?
Yep, all over the world.
All over the world. Wow. Yeah. So did I make the cut or like?
No, you're not even close.
I just started playing recently. I just grabbed this.
I think you'd get on the radar, but I don't think you'd get.
I got to practice more. Okay, we'll start practicing.
I think words would help.
Words, yeah. Okay, like vocals.
Like tiny bubbles or something. I don't know.
All right, so let's get started. So Techstars, how many people are familiar with Techstars? It's not looking for, okay, a lot of people. Okay, good. So let's just dive in then. So what are you been up to with Techstars, and how many companies are involved in locations now? Because you
Sure. Yeah, so Techstars has really grown in the last few years. We started just in Boulder, Colorado in 2007. Mm-hmm. And since then, we've really grown this geographic-based program. So we're also in New York and Boston, Chicago, Seattle, Austin, Texas, and London.
London?
So overseas as well now. And we've worked with about 400 companies at this point. They're batches of 10 per class. We run each class once a year. And those companies have raised about $1 billion now.
Wow.
And
not all at the same time.
No, total. And employ thousands of people, which is really cool to see.
Right.
And we're also managing venture capital around the system. It's actually about 200 million now, so that's grown.
Wow.
Since wherever you pulled that stat from.
That 7 million was from, I think it was from your buyer or something.
7 million or
70 million?
70.
So that was personally.
Yeah, that's personally. I just don't update stuff very often.
So it was personal. It was like your personal stuff. So
no, I'm not 70 million personally.
Okay.
Don't even get
personal.
No.
Okay.
So we have venture funds that are about 200 million around the system. So most of the money coming into the Techstars companies are from outside our funds. Right. Every venture fund gets involved, but it's really grown to the point where we also now run programs on behalf of partners.
Right.
So we run programs for Disney and Barclays and others that are sort of focused in certain areas. We run them the same way.
Okay, so let's talk about why did you start this in 2007? So let's just do a quick rewind.
Yeah, it's near and dear to your heart. I think sort of similar to mine, which is, people ask me, why'd you start Techstars in Boulder? I said, well, that's where I lived. Right. So that's what I wanted to do, right? Is create a better community in Boulder. So that's at least half the reason that we did it was to try to improve the ecosystem there by bringing in mentors. We're really sort of the creators of that mentorship-driven model. The idea of having 100 mentors from the community focused on 10 companies, right? That's really spread around the world now, and it was really to improve what was happening with sort of a 20-year view in that community, and also to create a better way to
20-year view.
Yeah, it's always 20 years. That's how we think. I think as an investor, you have to think about at least 20 years out, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's a better way to do early stage investing. So those were the reasons we created it.
So what was it like beforehand in Boulder, like before you guys got started?
It was a great place to live, just as it is now. That pot wasn't legal yet. We take a lot of credit for that. We think we had a lot to do with that. Thank you. There's one. Thank you. Two. Thank you. No, there was an entrepreneurial community that was mostly focused around kind of storage and telecom. There were, Brad Feld was there with Mobius Venture Capital, which is $1 billion+ fund, but he was the only partner in Colorado. Right. So he wasn't doing a lot of investing there. And it was really, I would say I could count the number of angel investors on one hand, 4 or 5. And, there was activity, but it just wasn't organized activity. Right. And I think it was in maybe like number 22 in venture capital in the U.S. It was like pretty far down the list.
And so by bringing this accelerator model to Boulder, has it been able to bring out more investors? Has the region seen more capital?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's now number 4 in the U.S. in venture capital after the places you would guess. Sometimes number 5, so it flops around.
Depends who you're talking to.
Yeah, the report. Yeah. But it gets a lot of venture capital for being a town of 100,000 people.
And that's because you just mentioned organizing. Is that why? You've organized a place that...
First of all, I wouldn't take the credit for that. I think we're just a part of that, right? But a lot of great things have been happening there. I think what the Techstars model does is it basically creates new angel investors, right? Because the mentors who are trying to give back in an organized, high-quality way get to do that through Techstars. They jump in and they get emotionally attached, right? Just as you would to any startup you worked with. And if you have a choice, if you've built a company like Raleigh and Boulder that just went public or something like that, you have a choice of, you can go get a yacht and sail around and hang out in Hawaii, or you can give back to the community a little bit, or you can actually do both. And so we give them a construct in which to do that, and it's been really powerful.
Okay. So are there specific characteristics that you think allowed Techstars to be so impactful to that area?
Well, I think a couple things come to mind. One is this sort of mentor-driven model, right? So one of the things we always talk about with startup communities, and Brad Feld kind of wrote the book on this. I know you're doing a little book tour next week with Brad.
Brad,
right?
In Boulder. Yep.
Is this idea of the Boulder thesis, where you have this kind of high quality, filtered way to engage as a mentor. It's once a year. It's attracting new talent into town. So I think this, getting the mentors involved, getting the whole community involved, has been something that was really different from that time, and it's been super impactful because it gives you a thing to do together.
Right.
It's not just another, cocktail party with awards. It's deeper than that, right? And it gives people something to really engage with. Plus I think obviously the benefit of having Brad and Foundry Group sort of, being very involved and supporting it from the beginning, huge, global network we've been able to put together because of that.
Right.
I think that's brought a lot of attention to Boulder.
Okay. And so you want to talk a little bit about accelerating cities and some of the things we've talked a lot today. There's been a lot of sessions about the different components that you need. So like, access to capital and density and, actually media attention and drawing attention to the things that are happening, amplifying that. What do you think the role is of universities? You got UC Boulder right there.
Yep. Well, it's when we think about the University of Colorado, it hasn't been historically very entrepreneurial at all. And most communities, have that problem, right? They have a university that's doing a good job at what they do, but it's not necessarily the most entrepreneurial place in the world. And, it takes a long time. Again, that 20-year view, right? Some people, in order for that to change inside the university, just have to die, right? And time has to pass, right, for things to change, because they're not going to have that attitude, right? And you're never going to change that. What we've been doing as a community is very consciously moving the events and activities onto campus, right? So it makes it really, really easy for the professors, the students to engage in, and that's been pretty powerful there. But we just, after 7 years, funded the first company ever out of the University of Colorado.
Wow! Because you hadn't invested.
There had never been one that sort of made that that bar.
Really?
So we're super excited that finally happened to where it got to that quality point. Wow. There's a the whole community is trying to figure out how do we do more on campus, and just literally moving stuff there has been a good hack.
Interesting. Okay. So what role do you see? I mean, we talked about a little bit about the mentorship-driven program and how it's created angel investors. What role do you see the VCs having in building a startup city?
Well, I mean, I think the accelerators, the lawyers, the VCs are participants, right? They're part of the community, certainly, but the entrepreneurs are the leaders, right? So, they have to. The VCs are going to come specifically if there's good companies to invest in, right? And so, over time, most entrepreneurial communities will say, "Well, there's nowhere near enough capital here." Right. Everywhere you go, that's what you hear.
Yeah, or talent.
And the VCs will say, "There's plenty of capital." Right. But I think the money, as we've seen in Colorado, sort of rising up the charts of VC is going to follow the interesting stuff. So, funds open offices, they, obviously supply the capital flow into the community, but you need super connectors in each community, someone like you have here in Tony or others that sort of know people that can draw outside capital to co-invest. I think so they play that role, but they're not the leaders of it. The entrepreneurs are, and they're just trying to support it.
So let's go back to begin with. What did you do to seed that? Because that's not, you do hear that a lot, like the capital, we don't have enough capital here, we don't have, in some cases, enough talent or whatever, but we're talking about capital right now. So what did you do to kind of seed that, in that you had Brad? I mean, he was investing there locally. Who else, was local? And then how did you draw in the others?
So, there were a few funds, right? I mean, there was Boulder Ventures and, just a few, not many, 3 or 4, really. And, like I said, by giving these mentors who had success in their companies a context, we were birthing angel investors who had plenty of money and just never thought about, why would I invest in a startup? So that helped. And then I think the key hack that we did, I mean, if you think about why a lot of you, who's traveled in for this? Anybody?
A lot of people.
Like half of you, right? And probably of the other half, people just don't raise their hands, right? I've noticed that phenomenon.
It's scary. Scary to raise your hand.
But you traveled in largely because other people were traveling in,
right?
And there was a thing that was going to enable you to make some good connections and spend some time with people that were like-minded or you could learn from. And we did the same things, right? If you think about what an accelerator is, it's, 100 people in that community who are the best and brightest entrepreneurs working on the 10 most promising startups in that community. That's a thing I'll come in for.
Right.
Totally. And so the demo day event was, we saw attracting out-of-state money more so than any other event we had in the state.
That's great.
Right? And it was like, okay, you're onto something.
And I'm not picking on Techstars specifically, but I've heard other entrepreneurs say that demo days aren't worth it anymore. They're changing and they turn into almost like a
show.
A show for the investors or the actual accelerators to raise more capital to continue to do what they do. Have you heard this rumor or this criticism?
So we get a little bit of that, but I think not as much as others because we're not funded by like a VC or a corporation, right? We're very conscious of where the money is coming from in our system. So there's nobody that has more than say 10% ownership that's a venture fund in anything we do. Right. And we've been very, very conscious of that. So the deals aren't picked over in that sense. A lot of the VCs are complaining, we go to this thing and it's a well-orchestrated show. It's hard to tell what's real and what's not.
A lot of deals are already done.
I think we have a better way of dealing with that and that we don't, we're not like, okay, Sequoia's behind this one or, this particular company's behind this one. Even with something like the Disney Accelerator that we run, that company has, no rights to, buy the companies or invest in the company. So it's a very open market and we try to curate it that way. So we've seen a little less of that than some others.
Interesting. And so let's talk about some of those corporate engagements. So you've got Disney, you've worked with Rackspace a while back.
Nike, Microsoft, Barclays, Kaplan, I mean, Sprint. We've done 7 of them.
And they're all very focused on a niche?
Yeah. So, I wouldn't call them a niche. They're vertically focused, thematic. So, for example, a Disney program which ends next week in LA, we run it. It's Disney co-branded. They give first. That's our mantra. They give first to the entrepreneurs. They don't take anything. Right? They're giving mentorship. They don't get rights to do anything with the company. They have to earn whatever they're going to do, whether it's business development or, we've had a few of them buy companies, which is good. But we run it, and it's focused on an area. So that one is digital media and entertainment.
That makes sense.
Kaplan is ed tech. Barclays is fintech, and so on. What you're getting is this sort of the Techstars way of providing access to capital and helping your company get started. But you're getting all that support from the corporation with no strings attached, which is a really unique innovation model. We didn't hear about that much in the last panel.
No, but the point, there were a couple other sessions earlier. The key here was to try to show all the different components, and there are silos in corporations, right? Startup, you're working on your thing, and it's hard to get into that silo, so you're obviously breaking down that barrier.
Yeah, we think it's really unique once people understand it, because right now you see the Disney Accelerator and say, that's Disney trying to take advantage of a startup. It's pure teaching the companies, just like we teach the mentors, give first. Don't expect anything in return, and good things will happen. You just don't know what they're going to be. So we're seeing, Microsoft, that we ran a program for, bought one of the companies. They're buying companies across the portfolio, but they earn that through sort of providing access to technology or insight, as well as sort of coupling it with our mentor network. So it's been powerful.
All right, and then so most of your stuff has been in the US, but you mentioned London. Let's just talk about that briefly, and I want to make sure we open it up for questions. So be thinking about if you have questions for David
So I'll tell you about London, but let me prime the pump for them, because I would much rather talk about what you guys want to talk about.
Give what they want, right?
And I'll tell you, so background-wise, I'm an investor in 450 startups. I'm running venture funds that go from seed all the way up through Series A, maybe Series B. I'm hugely passionate about startup communities and, the places with a chip on their shoulder that want to get better. This being here is just awesome because of that. So to get your thinking about questions, those are the things I love. London was opportunistic. We were giving first to a guy named John Bradford 4 years ago. And John was trying to launch a accelerator, springboard in the UK. sure, we'll teach you how we do this.
Yeah.
Right? We open sourced the Techstars playbook in 2011, part of Startup America. Before that, I was sort of telling John, here's how you do it, and giving time, letting him come see what we do and how it works, because I think that just makes everything better when people invest and try to help.
Right.
Rather than thinking of it as competitive, it's like better to be close to them.
Yep.
And John built a great program, and I think years later, rather than us being on our own, we just sort of brought it into the system and acquired it. And we did the same thing in Chicago.
Right.
With Accelerate, which you know.
Accelerate. Yep.
Right. So that's how those two cities got to be in our network, and it was purely because we just viewed it as additive to be helpful. There was never a secret plan or an evil plan to do that. It just works out that way. And that's the beauty of the idea of just giving first to startups or to others that are trying to help startups.
That makes sense. All right, so have you been thinking about, have those ideas been percolating?
We could also do ukulele shout-out songs.
Yeah, just
if that's more interesting to you.
We'll try to figure out how to play those real quick. All right, so who's got the back in the back there? We'll just repeat the question.
What level of traction do you look for in terms of users or revenue?
What level of traction do you look for? Users and revenue.
So we don't actually target a specific level of sort of traction or revenue. We hear from startups, we're farther along, we don't need an accelerator, and often those are the most interesting ones because the fact that they do have something allows them to use the resources better. But there's no specific target. One of the things we're doing that I think is kind of different to deal with that sort of am I too far along question is that we recently launched this equity-backed guarantee. I don't know if you read about it.
Let's talk about
it's
that.
It's a totally different thing, right, in the market. But because we were having companies say, I'm farther along, and I'm not sure it's worth giving up some common stock, for $120,000 that you provide.
Right.
And I said, well, we're pretty sure, so how can we solve that problem?
Yeah.
Right? And they said, well, maybe we'll do it if it's for less. And we said, why don't we just do it and we'll figure it out later? And we found out that was really powerful, right? This idea of giving first. And
so how does that, let's just explain for folks.
What it is that, if at the end you don't think it was worth it, then just change the number. So we basically make it vesting based on the fact that you thought it was worth it, right?
Wow.
And that's, what we've seen is that, don't you wish like everyone would do that, right? Like
I'd like to do that at the grocery store.
Exactly.
Like, hey, I didn't
Restaurants
really like
or
this.
whatever.
I'm taking this back.
So for us, it's been, we've done it a dozen times, and people who we used to maybe negotiate with a little bit ended up giving us more, almost like the tip thing when you go, because they thought it was so valuable.
Right.
And we just eliminate that whole concern on the front end. So, we're not targeting it. We are seeing more and more later stage companies. We love having a mix. And by later stage, I mean maybe their first $1 million in revenue or something like that.
So it's still early.
That's to me still a startup.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're looking to build something big. So we work with 2 people and a dog and an idea, all the way up to $1 million in revenue or funding or more.
Right. And other pets as well, I'm sure.
You could have a cat. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Down here.
Matthew Harmon from HT Scores.
Woo!
So there are so many accelerators out there, and there's AngelList, F6S, Gust, and all these platforms that are essentially filtering devices for, groups. And what is, your opinion of the quality of those filters to get the deals to you?
So there's a number of platforms out there now that allow you to find investors and actually create a profile and everything, and they act as a filter. So what are your thoughts on those? Like, so AngelList and F6S, Gust?
I think all of that stuff is additive and awesome.
Yeah.
There's a fundamental difference between, a social platform that unearths something and spending 3 months with somebody seeing them work, right? So as a filter, I believe that our filter is much better, right? We're essentially completely eliminating team risk from the equation. That's more, hey, I'm funding a deal because I know these people and I'm going to shout about it and spread it around. And I think it's massively helpful because more companies are getting funded and more money's flowing into the asset class. It's just a different kind of filter, right? And I think within the sort of AngelList, Gust, et cetera, obviously AngelList kind of seems to be doing something right. Probably by thinking mostly about the founders, right? That's why I think they're having so much success.
So do your companies generally use that then? Do they use these platforms?
Yeah, I think it's totally compatible. So, I've always said I think AngelList is a great place to finish a round.
Right.
It's maybe not the best place to start a round.
Because at first, it's your first profile. It's like friends.
A lot of companies don't know that, and they go on AngelList and they advertise that they suck.
Right.
The way they do that is they say, we have no start to our round. We have nobody you know that's
We have
investing.
nothing happening.
And I'm constantly promoting myself so that you're seeing the same crap every week for months at a time.
So in a way, it's kind of gamed in a way. You have to game it in order to
We
make
have
it
to
work.
understand what it is.
Right. And understand people.
So if you get some early movement on your round and
Then
you're
it's a
sort
good time.
of half committed or something, then you go on there all at once to make that noise. I think that's great.
Right.
That's understanding what the phenomenon is. I think when you're just going on there and advertising that you suck, it's
Right.
not helpful. Right. So understand the tool.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So for anybody that does have that problem, what would your advice be? It's like they're trying to get that round going.
To get it going from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So focus on quality and not quantity. I think people go out and they sort of pitch everyone.
Yeah.
Right. And I've literally seen could you please introduce me to these 400 people?
Yeah.
Right. Like those kind of emails.
Right.
And I'm like, well, do the work. Figure out who would actually care about this thing.
Right.
What you're doing. Who do you admire and for what reason? That's genuine. And focus on mostly local. I think getting the round started locally is the right approach, especially for that first seed round.
Yep.
And then once you have that, leverage their network and their sort of social proof to get to the next level. But you'll find that, we're just raising, our third venture fund, and the first third is the hardest part.
Right.
And once you get that, it gets easier, and then when you're 2/3 done, it's just done.
Right.
Right? It's like everybody gets scared and wants to jump in. So just understand that it's a social game that you're playing.
It is, yeah.
And starting with someone who is that super connector, that's well known and has a good track record, not necessarily well known, just has a good track record, is a great way to start, and then go from there, as opposed to let me just pitch everybody. Focus
blanket the world
on
with this,
real relationships with a few people.
Right. Yeah.
My
Relationships.
advice.
You mentioned relationships, so importance
Yeah.
of relationships.
It's like dating.
Right.
You don't just go in and ask everybody out.
Right.
You focus.
That's a great
Startups
point.
is just like dating. If you think about it, there's so many analogies to
Yeah,
dating. It's crazy.
Okay.
I'm no good at that part, so I don't know anything about it.
Next question. I saw one over here in the middle area. Yeah, right here. Oh, Porter.
You guys were one of the first to have an AngelList syndicate fund from your fund. How has that gone? And,
Okay.
how are you syndicating?
So how is your AngelList syndicate? You were one of the first to do it. Like, how is
Yeah,
that going?
so we, what we did is we did a little experiment with AngelList early on where you could fund an entire class of Techstars companies. So they had a rule which was every company in the class has to opt in. So take, for example, Austin, 10 companies going through that program. If all 10, Austin, shout out. If all 10 said, yes, I want to raise a little extra money for AngelList, then we could create a fund. And we did it, and I think it was an extra, $75,000 per company, so $750K got raised for that. What we ran into is that most of the classes you couldn't get the unanimous yes. And AngelList viewed that as bad signal. Like there's one that's doing better. We're not offering all the companies to our investors. We don't want to do it. So most of the time we found that we can't get all the companies to opt in because they're sort of done taking money at a lower price and are thinking they're going to take money at a higher price. And they know the reason is they know.
So that was a lesson learned, right?
Yeah.
That didn't.
So that was just trying it.
Yeah.
We have a lot of companies that have used it individually, obviously, but we haven't done a lot with syndicates because capital around the system hasn't been our problem. And for a lot of the companies, coming out of Techstars to get an extra $75K and have a bunch of people you don't know, right? Just it wasn't that attractive when they're raising $1 million and sort of it's going okay for them.
Right.
So we found individual companies using it to fill out their rounds more than anything today.
Interesting. Okay. In the green shirt there, and then we'll go over here.
What kind of deals are you currently looking for or most excited about?
What are you most excited about? What are you looking for, deal-wise?
So we have these like 7 areas that we care about, but I don't bore everybody with all of them. One of them is definitely amazing people and markets that we think are changing. So that's the catch-all.
Okay.
And we learn about those through Techstars, right? Because who knows, maybe this is interesting.
Yeah.
We've always been big infrastructure investors. So what I mean by infrastructure is the SendGrids of the world, the Twilios of the world. They're taking something hard and making it very easy on the internet. We've been big thematic investors in that area. Many portfolio companies, imbalanced marketplaces. We're in the first round of Uber, right? So that was an imbalanced marketplace to us, which was, why are these people in the middle taking so much money? This is stupid. We look for those sort of dynamics. We're actually big in vertical search. So the idea that you're going to go to Google to look for everything. We think is not really going to work long term. Things like Macavo that are the genealogy search engine, or you would know Kayak, right? Like something that allows you to do deeper search in an area. So we have a bunch of themes like that. Probably the one I'm most personally interested right now is human-computer interaction, HCI. If you saw Minority Report, right, the way that we interact with computers, I'm an investor in that company, which is Oblong.
Minority Report?
No, Oblong.
Oh, okay.
Those are the guys that did the movie, the scientists in the movie, all the tech in it. And they have this thing where you can interact with data with your hands.
That was real?
Well, it wasn't real then, but it's real now.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, it's real now.
Just wanna
Back then it was a
clarify.
vision.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
But you can actually do all that stuff now. It's really cool to lean in and point at the Hollywood sign in a sort of visual landscape and zoom into it.
That is neat, yeah.
Stuff like that.
Cool.
So I think we're creating more data every year than the history of humanity, right? And how do you access it and deal with it is a really interesting area.
I don't know if that was 7. That was quite a few. So
No,
I
I'm
think
not going to do
that-
it.
Okay,
You can
cool.
read about them.
All right, down here we've got a question.
What advice would you give to someone who's applying to an accelerator so that they can kind of stand out as
How do you stand out? What are some advice you give to folks that are trying to get into an accelerator?
I mean, it's like anything, right?
It's like dating.
Progress helps, right? So we have this, when we look at applications, we have this 6 criteria that we're looking at in order, right? Team, market, progress, idea. So heavily team-oriented for early stage activity. How do these people know each other? Are they actually doing stuff? We have this theory that entrepreneurs do stuff, instead of just talk about stuff. We think it's right.
Yeah, I think so.
And obviously it's just, be awesome, right? So through the product execution is the best way to get noticed, I think, whether that's customers or just a nice early prototype. And focus a lot on your team, because I think most early stage investors are really focused on, is this team the one that's going to do this thing? Yeah.
All right, back here. George. Yeah.
I just reread Startup Community by Brad
Yeah.
Bell, and it was really interesting to me, like how you integrated with the college right there in Boulder. Is it UC, or is it UC Boulder? So,
Yeah, University of Colorado in Boulder.
Yeah.
So, what kind of ways did you guys, what did you see, what was the most effective way that you guys integrated with the college? Because we're just getting started with talking to UNLV.
Yep.
Yeah.
Starting a clinic program that I've heard about. But what other ways have you seen, did you guys interact that was particularly effective?
Yeah. So how have you interacted with Boulder? And there's others too, though. There's the School of Mines. What's that
Yeah,
one
it's
called?
a School of Mines.
That's
It's
what I thought.
actually a bigger source of
That's what I
tech
thought.
talent
Yeah,
for us than
right.
than
And
Boulder.
it's close by, right? Isn't it?
It's half an hour.
Half an hour,
hour
okay.
away.
So you've worked with those two. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you do that?
I think, we talked about it a little bit earlier,
Yeah,
but I think the most effective hack is what you're talking about, was moving stuff
On
onto campus. So rather than having, the thing, whatever the meetup is, at some random place that the community's used to, alternate and go to the school. And it picks up people there. I think, I joined I joined the Computer Science Advisory Board, right? I tried to get involved and help the school think more entrepreneurially. Again, like I said, a lot of people just have to die. There's a
That's
mindset
unfortunate.
often on campus that is not entrepreneurial, right?
Right.
And often you see sort of the up and coming people thinking that way because they're seeing the Waterloos and the Stanfords of the world, right? And they want to replicate it.
But no one takes that literally. Don't take that literally. But we'll wait for that to happen. But
That just helps a little.
So, but you basically just said you traded your time to be a part of that to help.
Yeah, and, make it easy for them to engage,
Right.
right? I mean, leverage the resources of the university, and the community is the leader, not the school. So you guys lead and take stuff there.
Got it.
Right.
That's good advice. Okay, I saw some other hands down here on the left. What do you look for in folks applying for the Rising Stars program?
/ what the hell is the Rising Stars?
That's what I was going to ask, actually. What is the Rising Stars program?
So we have a thing we've been pretty quiet about, purposefully.
Like whispering or?
Just not, we haven't been trying to,
Get it out there.
we
Okay.
haven't, gone to major publications
Oh,
and
got it. Yeah.
told them about
Well,
it. So
heard
you're
it
getting a
first.
scoop here.
Okay. Rising Star program.
So,
What is
so what
this?
Rising Stars is a way to reach out, leverage the Techstars mentor network, which is 1,200 people, the alumni of 400 plus companies, so another 1,000 people there,
Right.
to help get more underrepresented communities to be part of startups, right? We weren't seeing enough, military veterans,
Right.
certain minorities, women. I mean, you just want to try to reach out and say, how can we specifically go try to help those people? So what we said is we have this asset, which is, all of these people that have been amazing mentors to startups and are active investors. We have 2,000 of them.
Wow.
Can
That's
we
a
help
solid network,
2,000 underrepresented companies? That was the goal. We
You
only
want to help
help
2,000 underrepresented.
take each one of those people
Yep.
and help one company every year.
Yep.
That doesn't seem very hard, right?
Yeah, no.
And it would be a big thing to accomplish. So we
Yep.
prototyped that, and we helped, I don't know, something like 150 companies in the first year. We just asked for people to help,
Yep.
and we decided consciously, let's not promote it until it works.
Right.
You guys know Frederick Hudson? He's an entrepreneur here, right? Pigeonly.
Yep.
So he was part of this.
Oh, cool.
And he's great,
Yeah.
right? He's awesome.
Yep.
That company got into an accelerator in California somewhere, I can't remember, and has raised $1 million or more and has got a real business going.
Great.
He showed up at a veterans event that we ran, a 3-day thing where we just tried to have office hours and help these companies. And we sort of vouched for him, helped him get into an accelerator, and he raised a bunch of money, and they're doing great.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, think about the impact that
Right.
this network can have on folks that maybe, don't look like what we expect them to look like.
Right.
Right? In this community sometimes. And, so that's our little way of trying to change that. And I think in the next year or so, we'll start to actually talk about it.
Okay.
So you scooped us.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Nice
that.
work.
That's what that is. So what was the question again? I didn't answer the question. That's what it is.
Yeah. So how do you get involved?
How do you get involved? So the best way is if you know a Techstars founder or you know a Techstars mentor, just say you have interest in it. It actually, one of our problems is because we're not advertising it, a lot of people just don't know it's there yet.
Right.
And so anyone that's doing anything kind of interesting will probably be able to find someone to help with that.
Yeah.
The goal of that is not that you get into Techstars or that we fund you, it's that we're helpful, right? And so we're trying to use the network to be helpful. That may be the outcome, but it's not the only good outcome.
That's great.
You could also just send me an email, David@Techstars, and I'll hook you up with it.
All right. I thought I saw some other hands go up, but it's bright lights, bright lights.
I can't see anything.
I can't see anything. Anything up here? Questions?
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
there is
hi.
one. Look at
There
that.
is one. Hello, do you have a question? Or are you just waving at us?
But I just want to say, just like John, I'm Gabrielle Ukrainian.
Yeah, I can't see.
Up, Gab.
Oh, hey.
I can't see you at all, just so
Yeah.
you know.
That's okay. David was a huge help to us in the very beginning, so I don't think we would have done nearly as well as we have without that assistance. So thank you for helping the DAPS community.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
So I don't think we helped a lot. I think you guys did amazing stuff on your own, but they came and hung out in Boulder, right? And
Yep.
again, I think, when I got started with Techstars, I went to Y Combinator and I said, hey, we're trying to do this thing in Boulder. And I
Right.
got the stiff arm, right?
That's interesting.
Right, which was, no, we won't take a meeting.
Really?
So can I get a 15-minute meeting? I'll come to your office. No.
Wow.
Right? Can we get on the phone for 10 minutes? No. Right? And I think it was just shocking to me that was the attitude. And so, when Gabby came and
Yeah.
said, want to check it out? I said, sure, come check it out. Here's what we do. Right? And I don't know what else we really did other than just sort of open up the playbook and say,
yeah.
this is how we do this.
Right.
But, I think Dallas is better for it. And I think everyone,
Yeah.
it helps entrepreneurs. So why would you not do that?
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
So thanks. I don't know what we did,
Gabrielle.
but it seems like it's going awesome. So
All right.
What do you think of the Matterhorn score?
What do you think of the Mattermark score?
I don't pay any attention to, not that one in particular, but purely scientific models. I basically just don't buy it. I think it's something that's good input to maybe inform the way you're thinking about something. But this sort of pure Moneyball thing, I think it's much more a human endeavor than people realize, right? So, and also, a lot of these things, I don't know about that one in particular, are very biased by small data sets, right? Or selection bias or things like that. So I'm not sort of depending on that in any way as a data source.
I have a question about just in general as a city. So, when did you know, within Boulder, that that it was you made an impact and it's quote unquote made it? Or how does the city know that?
I think when a city knows that, it's in trouble, right? I mean, I think Silicon Valley is a special place. I think everybody should stop naming their thing Silicon whatever.
Something, yeah. We're going to run out of silicon.
That drives me crazy.
Yeah, I know.
You're going to be the best, Des Moines or wherever you are that you can be, right? And, I think if you say, Boulder's made it, we don't need more capital, we don't need more great entrepreneurs, that's not good. So the 20-year view is 20 years from right now,
Oh,
right?
I thought it was 2007.
No, it resets every day,
Oh,
right? So that's how we think about it. Like, what can we do to make it better in 20 years? Right? Like, what are the initiatives we can start today that'll have an impact in 5 or 10 years?
Right.
So we have a new thing, for example, called the, Blackstone. They have this
Yeah.
entrepreneur network
Yeah.
thing. So we're doing that. We're really supporting that a lot in Colorado, which is take a company that is already working and get it to be like 10 times better, right? Not just a startup, but a company that's like maybe 10 million in revenue, right? How do you make that a real outlier company?
so what have you been doing?
So it's finding all the people that want to contribute to that kind of company. It's a different type of mentor.
Right, it is.
Right? It's
you're
a different type of helper.
Right, it's a little further along, and they've got the So
a lot of people help with these accelerators because they just love that stage.
Right.
There are other people that don't do that, but that'll engage at the level where the company's quote unquote, real, right? And they're really powerful in that context. So we want to use people for where they can be most helpful.
That makes sense.
So that's just different.
And how do you find those mentors? I mean, do they find you? Or do you find them?
For Techstars or for Blackstone?
Both, either.
It's generally networks, right?
Yeah.
It's somebody funded the company, somebody was on the board of something.
Right.
When you think about how big the network is
Right.
that we're dealing with, they're going to know one of those people.
Do you
right?
have
That's
like a
kind of the idea.
listserv or anything? It's like,
We have this thing called Google. You should check it out. It's Google, this group.
do you have a Google group?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I'm just curious.
We have all kinds of.
Thought we were just chit-chatting
We
here.
have our own internal
Yeah.
tools for all this stuff. We have this thing called Connect that the founders can go in
Right.
and they can search, Andreessen Horowitz and say, oh, okay, DigitalOcean, right?
Yeah.
They funded that company and this guy's on the board.
So this
and
is something you built or something?
we
you-
built it for
Oh.
our network.
Okay.
And so the mentors can use it and the companies can use it. And it's really powerful if somebody's inbound to you and wanting to fund your company, who do I know in the network
That's huge, yeah.
that knows those people,
Yeah.
right? So we're trying to expose all that.
It's like information technology almost.
It is. It's like the internet.
Yeah, it's amazing. Are there other tools like that you've built or seen holes where you need to kind of create?
Yeah, we have this whole, we put a lot of energy into kind of what sounds like boring back office stuff. Like every cap table's in a Salesforce-based system called AIM. We then expose parts of that to the network. Every time a company, how you guys all send updates to your investors, if you have investors that here's what's going on in the company.
Yeah.
We actually deal with those systematically because of
Okay.
our volume.
Yeah,
We have entire tasks being created for the organization without you having to change your process. So just a lot of parsing and integration of things to not make it harder on the entrepreneurs. And just
Right.
always think about they shouldn't have to fill out a form. They should just do what they do, like send
Right.
an email, and we should deal with that.
so you take a lot of email.
A lot of email.
A lot of email.
I love email. That's why I say things like david@techstars.com in public places. I don't mind. How hard is it to answer a freaking email? It's not
Well,
that
it
hard.
depends how much you get, I guess.
I get like 800 emails a day. I answer them.
All
It's
of
not
them?
that hard.
Wow.
I don't answer all of them because not
Yeah.
all of them need a response.
Right, yeah.
But, I'll answer the entrepreneurs that write me.
Is there a system you use? I'm curious, just because that's a lot of email volume.
Yeah, it's called Gmail. Have you guys seen Gmail?
I know, but you'd have to
I
like
use
spend some time.
I use SaneBox, Sane Later,
Yeah.
all that stuff. I think that's awesome. So I may not answer you immediately if it's in my later folder, but
I'm just curious if you have a system for how you're going to get through all that every
yeah, I
day.
work on internal stuff, and then I look at,
Yeah.
and if I can't answer it, I have somebody on we have 60 people, right? So
Right.
somebody can help. If you're in Boston, I might refer you to the Boston
Yeah.
folks, right?
That makes sense.
I mean, Techstars, I wouldn't be here if Brad Feld didn't answer random emails. I didn't know him when I said,
Right.
hey, I want to do this crazy thing.
And that's how it
He
started.
answered the email.
Right,
Good stuff happens. Nothing good happens if you ignore people,
right.
right? So
Yeah.
it's
makes
not that
sense.
hard.
No, you're right.
People that don't answer email drive me nuts.
There's a question.
So one of the things Boulder's been pretty good at is like having companies like a Gannett who it's hard that they get to stay and we have Twitter.
Yeah.
Is there any magic to keeping those successful companies in that community?
Let's talk about magic.
Yeah.
Keeping them there, keeping them still open and operating.
Yeah.
So Gannett is an example of a company that's done really well in Boulder, and they're staying there, and they work with Twitter, and
Yeah.
Or they're required by Twitter, right? So,
Yes.
Yeah.
So Boulder's 100,000 people.
Right.
But we have Microsoft, Google, Twitter.
Right.
Like
All
why,
there.
why
But
the
that
hell
wasn't like that,
Why
right?
the hell is that happening?
2007,
right?
that wasn't that like
No,
that.
I think it's a place that people want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so your example of Judd at Gannett, I think Judd wants to be in Boulder, right?
Right.
And you want to buy my company, like we want to be your Boulder office. And there's really smart people waiting tables because they want to be there that you could go hire, right? So I think it's just part of the ethos that if you're there, it's probably because you want to be there.
Yeah.
And that I think that with SketchUp that Google bought, right, it was the same thing. That they said, hey, that's part of the pitch here is we're going to give you another place to be. Bang is there, Microsoft. So I think it's just cultural that those people want to be there and they're making it part of the deal, right? Like we want you to have an office here. And those companies have become good anchors that are all of them founded in startups, right? So they all understand that ethos, the people in those offices, at least for a few years until they move on.
Good question. And so that's all happened since 2007. I remember actually for 2007, first demo day,
Yeah.
we came out
Yeah.
actually, and I remember you did it at the Boulder Theater.
Yeah.
And it was Tech Cocktail, Techstars, and we did a big
Boom,
event
boom,
around.
1-2, yeah, 1-2
crazy.
punch.
It
That was
fun.
awesome.
It was fun. And I assume it's changed a little bit. You do other
Well,
things.
so now we still use a Boulder Theater, and we get 500 to 1,000 investors there
That's a lot.
generally.
Yeah.
But we've also started to do this new thing at the football field at Folsom Field, which
Oh,
is where
cool.
the CU Buffs play.
Yeah. You filled that stadium?
No.
Oh, okay.
We do an intimate thing there.
okay.
It's just a cool view.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally.
But we have rooms where each company just has 10 investors at a time.
Oh, so like, okay.
Much
So
more
venture-
intimate, much more
Yep.
conversational. And then they go do the demo day. So they pitch all day long.
Right.
But the demo day is kind of the community celebration.
Right.
The investors who've made at least one investment in our companies, of which there are hundreds,
Yeah.
get invited to this sort
Preview
of,
almost.
yeah,
Like, that
this
makes
more
sense.
intimate event
Yeah.
as a thank you.
That's
so
awesome.
it's
And you do that before or after?
we did right before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's just they're really tired when they get to the
By the end of the
theater.
day, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So
You should come back and we should do
I
that
know
again.
we should do that again. I'm
Those
coming
were
back
awesome.
next week to do a fireside chat about
Yeah.
startup mixology.
You wrote a book.
I wrote a book.
Yeah.
You're actually in it. Did you know that?
Yeah, I remember writing it. You said, hey, can I say this? And I said, yes.
Okay. Good. You read that email.
I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in a book.
Right. Exactly. You're actually on the cover or the back cover.
I just got it, actually.
you did?
They
Cool.
They gave me one in the back.
We sent you one too. I don't know if it came.
Probably did.
Okay. So anyway, I hope you enjoy that.
Yeah. So I'm staying to tomorrow
Yep.
midday. If
Yep.
anybody wants to hang out,
Yep.
let me know. I
And
don't have
then-
many friends, so I like to collect new friends.
And you've also got some sessions set up, mentor
Yeah.
sessions, and
Tomorrow at
Tomorrow.
noon, right?
Yep.
That's morning in Vegas.
Yep.
Noon.
well,
Yeah.
I watch the sunrise, but most people don't.
Yeah, that's morning.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much, David. I really appreciate
Thanks
you
for having
coming out for this and giving your insights to all these great folks here. Like you said, he's going to be around and hanging out.